Thank you, Michiel. You always give me impossible tasks, and I always do them. By the way, 17 speakers. When I was looking at the screen, usually people who have nothing to say have the biggest screens. But in our case, we have both the biggest screens and a lot to say. So I'm quite surprised by the combination. Indeed, I'm not going to try to summarize what we heard. And I'm going to give you a distillation, what I think is a potential answer to the three questions I raised at the beginning of our meeting. And I'm going for each of those questions to remind you of the question. Then I'm going to give you the spelling of the key word in the question, suggest in an as practical way as possible what one could do, what you could do to answer the question. And then I'm going to give you a little subversive thought about this question. So this will be the structure of my conclusion. The first question was about purpose. And it was basically the question, how do I define my purpose, the purpose of my part of the organization, so that it fits the overall purpose of my company? The spelling, I would say, for purpose is T-R-U-S-T. Because indeed, virtually all purposes or raison d'être I've seen somehow include the trust question or relate to trust, or even if they don't mention it explicitly, trust plays a big role in most of the company purposes I know. And I would suggest to you that your purpose, notably if you were a CIO, is to make trust an explicit part of your own purpose. The main plank of your purpose should be to become the guardian of trust of your company. Why? Because trust has a lot to do nowadays with data. And the way you have to make it your purpose to do the right thing with data. The right way to collect data, the right way to vet data, the right way to use data, the right way to delete data, that is a role which will be a major contribution to the purpose of your organization. So that's my very practical suggestion. Center your purpose declaration on data. By the way, the young generation is thirsty for trust. So if you make it explicit that you want trust, that you want the transparency which goes with trust, you will speak to the hearts and minds of the young generation. My subversive thought is the following on purpose, is that having watched around 45 years of corporate social responsibility, most of it being fake, I hope that we will all work to make sure that our purposes and raison d'être are not fake this time. That was the first question. The second question was about talent. And it rang, how can I, as the head of a company or part of a company, how can I tap the huge reservoir of talent and creativity which exists in the young generations? Now, I'm going to spell talent T-O-P. Because in the digital world, notably, the only talent which counts is the top talent. And you know, the time always, one said, better 5 good people than 10 bad ones. In the digital world, it's better 1 top developer than 100 software coders. Therefore, you want to go after top talent, and it is your task to find the top talent for executing on the purpose of your part of the organization. Now, top talent is completely heterogeneous. I have 5 grandchildren who belong to these newest generations. 3 are definitely much more talented than their grandfather, and they are completely different one from each other. Completely different. Therefore, what you have to do in order to attract and keep top talent in your company, which is a must, you have to give them the individual treatment. There is no general rule for managing top talent. And therefore, I would suggest, as a very concrete point, that you reverse engineer your staffing process. You know, usually one has a position and one looks for the person who will more or less fit as closely as possible the requirements of the position, right? Now you have with top talent today, and the top talent of the young generation in particular, you have to do the reverse. You have to define the job which will fit that top talent person the best and make use of that top talent to the greatest extent possible. By the way, easy to say, difficult to do, but I would submit to you that if you spend as an executive a good part of your time doing that, the productivity of your function, the productivity of your company will increase in an extremely satisfying way. My subversive thought on top talent, and top talent among the young, is that you should change your vocabulary, your semantics, because the young generation is actually very perceptive, maybe more than we were, and there are a number of words they dislike. Therefore, you have to eliminate them. Let me mention just 2 as 4 examples. In India, many Western companies have local organizations. How do they call these local organizations? Captives. Therefore, I'm going to recruit top young talent to enter my prison. Brilliant. I mean, marketing is an art, marketing is a science, and I find that a good example of top-level marketing. So don't talk about your captive in India, talk about your powerhouse. Talk about your thought leadership home in India, and you might be able to recruit top talent. Another example, I'm the CIO of this company, and I spend most of my time dealing with what? What? It starts with an L, continues with an E. Legacy. I'm in charge of legacy, which means I'm in charge of a cemetery. Okay? I'm the cemetery guard, if there is such a thing. That's not a very good word, okay? So kill the legacy word, otherwise how are you going to motivate anybody, and especially anybody young, to join your organization? My third question was about time. And it basically went, there are so many different times nowadays that I need to learn how to manage extremely different tempi, from prestissimo to molto lento. My recommendation to you is to go and, first let me give you the spelling of time, R-E-A-L, real. Because the time which you need to manage, the time which makes the difference, the time which is required, is real time. And I would suggest to you to adopt as your default assumption to go for real time. Because this is the time which corresponds to the rhythms of our society and to the expectations of young people. Now, in order to achieve and move towards real time, it's not easy. There are two things you should do, in my judgment. First, you should transform your notion of artificial intelligence into the notion of accelerated intelligence. So use AI for speed. And this is a wonderful use of artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence will get us closer to the utopia of real time, much better than any other method. That's the first point. The second point is that you need to carefully conceal all the rest, because there is so much which will go so much slower than real time. Actually, we are specialized in IT to have long-lasting projects, right? Has changed quite a bit with Agile, etc. Still, we go for the duration, okay? So you need to conceal this whole part of your work which deals with slow times. There are various ways to do it. For example, if you have, I know in a very big German auto manufacturing company, there is a major project which has been going on. It's one of the backbone applications of that company, has been going on for 24 years. Now, it's difficult to conceal that. However, I can conceal these long times by having a much, much shorter cycle for going for new requirement to implementation. When I was in Mumbai last week with this big company, we discussed time, and the conclusion was that we need to have new interfaces. In the past, we were using new interfaces to conceal the ugliness of the transactions and the data. Now we need new interfaces to mask time and to give the feeling, as much as possible, the reality of real time to the users. That's how you can deal with time. Now, the subversive thought there is that business has been criticizing IT for its slowness forever, right? Has been a constant source of tension between business and IT. Why don't you turn the tables and propose to the business schedules, times, and rhythms which they cannot follow? IT in a hurry will be a big, big change in your company. So these are my three answers drawn from all these speeches to the three questions. Purpose, trust; talent, top; and time, real. And thank you so much, Michael, Menno, the whole team, for the extraordinary wealth of your meeting. And I look forward to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.